First, sir, could you introduce yourself?
Yes, Rolando Pablos, Rolando Pablos.
Okay. And you're one of several candidates running for mayor. Now, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? You were involved in state politics. You now run an advisory business for international trade. So just quick background if you can introduce yourself.
Well, first of all, thanks, Garrett, for inviting me to introduce myself to the community. I have to tell you, my wife, Laura, and I choose to live in San Antonio. We love this place. For us, we're just like everybody else who takes pride in calling San Antonio home. I've been here for 40 years. I came here in 1985. You know, I'm grateful to my parents who brought me here from Mexico as a child. You know, they brought me here with the hope of, you know, seeking a better life and getting the education that they never got. And so I'm glad to say I didn't let them down. I've earned 5 university degrees, 3 of them here in town at St. Mary's University. At UTSA, I earned a master's degree in business, and I went to law school at St. Mary's. And so for me, San Antonio's always been home. This is where I met my wife, and our kids were born, and you know, this is where I started my first business. So I want to retire here, and I want to make sure that San Antonio is a great place to retire.
So you have some profile at the state, having been a former Secretary of State under Governor Abbott, but as far as I can tell, this would be your first elected position that you're running for. Why, and why mayor?
Sure. So I am proud of the fact that I've served at the state level 5 different times at the highest positions. Governor Abbott and Governor Perry nominated me for the positions of Public Utility Commissioner, Racing Commissioner, and Secretary of State. And the state Senate confirmed me unanimously. So I've served at the state level. I think that now, being here in San Antonio, seeing where we need to be as a city, I think I can lend my skills, my talents to that position of mayor, because as mayor, I'll be able to have a really good opportunity to change the way things are going and make sure that as we go into the future, we can, you know, better our position as a city.
Why did you decide to run now?
Well, I've been back in San Antonio 5 years. I left Austin when I stopped being secretary, and I believe that this is the perfect time for that. We have a great opportunity with our current mayor not seeking re-election because of term limits. We're going to have 5 open seats on city council, and this is a great opportunity for San Antonio to really decide what direction they want to take our city. This is the perfect time to change the dynamics of city council and to really bring in qualified individuals who have proven leadership experience to take our city into a direction where we can actually compete with other Texas cities, bring quality jobs here, and, you know, hopefully bring the investment that we're so sorely lacking.
What's your vision for the city? I mean, what is it? You said you want to, it's an opportunity for new plans, so what's your vision for where you'd like to take the city possibly over the course of, you know, 2 to 8 years?
I want to see San Antonio live to its fullest potential. We have so many great things going on. You know, this city has been built on immense accomplishments. We have so many good people doing great things. We have great organizations doing their best to make San Antonio a better place. We have the chambers, we have Greater SATX doing a great job, Centro, the food bank. I mean, I can go on and talk about all the great things that are going on. The thing that we're lacking, though, is we need a vision for the future. You know, the path forward is hazy for me. I don't understand where we're going as a city. And so what I would like to do is I'd like to bring my skill set to the table, my relationships at a global level, to be able to leverage what we're already doing in San Antonio, to be able to bring those companies that are not coming here. We need companies to come to San Antonio. You know, Texas is the hottest economy in the world. We're the 7th largest economy. Companies are flocking to Texas, but for whatever reason, they're skipping us. They're going other places, right? I would like to see more companies come here, bring quality jobs. And here's the thing is when companies go to Austin and Dallas and Houston, they're taking our kids and grandkids with them. You know, we have a brain drain occurring. We want to be able to provide those opportunities for our kids and grandkids here in San Antonio. I don't want them going anywhere else. And so if we're going to build truly a world-class economy, which is my vision, to have a global level city, a tier 1 city, because right now we're not a tier 1 city. We need to get there. And the only way to do it is to, you know, bring in investment that's going to increase our standard of living, which will then improve our quality of life.
You mentioned skipping. What companies have you seen go to other cities that you think should have been San Antonio, that you think, you know, we could have been in the running for realistically?
Well, let's take a look at the rest of Texas, right? We've got over 50 Fortune 500 companies that call Texas home. In San Antonio, we have 2. The most recent one was Chevron. It just announced going to Houston. We have Tesla going up the road, Samsung. I mean, there are plenty of examples of companies that could have come here, but for whatever reason, they're choosing not to come here, right? And look, this is not a knock on the individuals that are doing economic development, both at the city and elsewhere. They're doing a great job. We just have to give them the tools. We have to work with them to make sure that they have what they need to be able to convince companies to come here. And so when I see companies going to Austin, right up the road, or to Houston, or Dallas, Corpus, you know, it makes me wonder, well, what is it that we can be doing? Right? We have all the ingredients. We have excellent centers of excellence, you know, great centers of excellence here in town. Everybody's doing a great job. It's just, you know, what is happening? And I think it has to do with unity, bringing everybody together, bringing all these organizations together under one vision, one master plan, so we can all row in the same direction.
One thing San Antonio's never been short on, though, is plans. So I'm not sure if I totally get where you're coming from on that part. What is it that you think, you know, a plan's going to do to, you know, fix some of these issues that would attract more of these companies, if that's kind of what you got your sights set on, these Fortune 500 companies, large and national corporations coming to San Antonio? What is it you think you'd be able to accomplish from the mayor's seat in up to 8 years that would turn that around and get San Antonio attracting more of those large companies?
Well, the mayor's job is very simple. It's to improve the quality of life, the well-being of individuals, right? And so the first thing we need to do is fix the issues that we have that are frustrating San Antonians. I understand San Antonians are frustrated about the crime situation, about our infrastructure, you know, our roads and our traffic. And so in order to be able to attract companies here, we have to fix several things that need to be fixing. And my message to San Antonians is that we can fix them. You know, we can come together, but it's going to require us to unify our efforts and come together. That's the first step that we have to take. You know, we can't be a divided city council. We can't be a divided community. We have to be able to work with our state government. We can't have a negative relationship with our state government. I'll tell you, if you look at the mayors of Dallas, of Houston, and of Austin, they all have one thing in common. They have all worked at the state capitol. They all have deep-rooted relationships at the capitol, like I do. Right? And so when we go to Austin every other year and compete for state funds, right, and we don't have a good relationship with Austin, then guess what? That's going to put us at a disadvantage. And so that's what I bring to the table. I'll be able to bring those relationships that are sorely lacking, right? I'll be able to leverage my relationships not only in Mexico. I've been doing business in Mexico for 25 years. We tout ourselves as the gateway to Mexico. And not a single Mexican multinational is headquartered here. They're elsewhere in Texas. And so bringing relationships to the table, particularly at all levels of government, we got to make sure that the city and the county are working together, looking at efficiencies, eliminating redundancies in our community. But the first thing we need to do is have a master vision. And the master vision is to be able to improve our quality of life by bringing in quality jobs, supporting our small businesses that create quality jobs, right? And ensuring that we all work together. But we can't do that until we fix the crime situation, our infrastructure situation. We're losing billions of gallons of water a year because we have aging infrastructure, right? So we need to be able to look at those things so that we can go out in the world. You ask, what does the mayor do? The mayor goes out and sells San Antonio. You want somebody who has done this before, have excellent experience in economic development. We need to get out, we need to leverage our relationships, talk to investors, and convince them to come here. They're going to want to see that San Antonio is ready for them, that we have a qualified workforce, that we have the infrastructure, that we have all the amenities that we need in order to be able to make a profit, because that's what they want to do when they come here, is they want to be, you know, a profitable organization, but at the same time, be in a community that's going to serve them well.
You spoke about your relationships up in the Capitol, where you have experience working with state government. San Antonio, I don't think anybody's surprised, is generally a blue city, as you know, most of the larger ones are. You served under Republican governors. You donate to Republican candidates
And Democrats.
On the state level, looking up on the donor, it's a lot of Governor Abbott,
Sure,
Rick Perry.
of course.
I didn't see any Democrats in the last 15 years, at least under your name, San Antonio.
I'll show you
but
some.
I'm glad to see them. But in any case, you know, you have a link to kind of, even though this is a nonpartisan race, you got more links to Republican state government rather than, you've got on the local level, San Antonio is very blue. So how do you see yourself working that where you're trying to appeal to a city that is largely Democrat with a pro-business and coming from kind of a Republican background?
So I'm glad you mentioned the fact that the mayor's office is a nonpartisan office, right? When people select their mayor, there's an expectation of neutrality, right? Of not bringing partisan politics into the mayor's office, right? And I, as your mayor, will make sure that we don't bring partisan politics there. Now, am I proud to be the only fiscally conservative candidate running for mayor today? Absolutely. I want to bring in my fiscally conservative credentials so that we can make sure that taxpayers keep as much of their money as possible, so that taxpayers know that their money is being well spent. Now, I refute the fact that, I only have Republican relationships. I know all of the Democrat elected officials here in town, and I have great relationships with them. The state Senate, as I said earlier, which is a bipartisan group, they're the ones who actually approved my appointment to my offices. And so I have a long history of being bipartisan. You can look at my record when I served in state government, and you'll see that, I have always had an equal, opportunity type of approach to everything that I do. And so I intend to do that here. I intend to work across the aisle. And like you said, even though it's nonpartisan, right, those people that are making this partisan are the ones that are tearing this community apart. We need to make sure that we stop the partisanship and we focus on basic services. That's why I want to get back to basics, right? Partisanship is tearing us apart, and we can't have that. And by the way, our forefathers who basically designed our charter were very wise in making city council races and city council positions, including the mayor's, nonpartisan, because they know that partisanship tears people apart. And so I will commit to not bringing partisanship to the mayor's seat and not playing partisan politics. We need to bring everybody together, irrespective of parties and ideology too.
You mentioned your fiscal conservative stance. Right now, the city of San Antonio is undergoing a budget deficit, as I think a lot of cities are post a lot of that federal relief money that came in post-COVID. The city's deficit certainly better situation than say Houston, but the the size of their deficit is.
Well, you're focused on deficit. I'm focused on debt.
Okay. Well, how do you view the city's budget then? How would you approach the city budget process right now? I mean, many of the other candidates that are in this race are city council members. We've seen how they handle the city government for the past couple of years. You would be a newcomer. Yeah. So looking at this year's budget, for example, how would you approach trying to cut that deficit?
What worries me the most about how our finances are being handled is our public debt. We're in debt to the tune of almost $18 billion. We're spending, what, 400, I don't know, fact check me on this, but we're spending around $400 million a year in debt service. We're spending money to pay for interest on our debt. Do you understand what we can do with $400 million if we didn't have that debt? We need to stop spending more than we're taking in, right? And that's how you accumulate debt. And so we're a city in Texas that has the most debt per capita. We have just as much debt, maybe a little more than Houston. On a per capita basis, we owe $12,000 per citizen, where Houston owes maybe $8,000. And so we first have to address that. And look, fact check me on this, but if you look at the city budget, there's nowhere in there that talks about the debt. It talks about the debt service, but owing $18 billion is preposterous. We can't do that as a city. That's taking away not only the opportunities of today, but we're burdening our future, our children and grandchildren with that debt. It's like carrying credit card debt, right? The interest eats you alive, and that's what's happening to us. And so if we take that into account, and then we look at our budget, and if we're budgeting for things with COVID money and temporary funding, again, we're just perpetuating the problem, right? So what I'd like to do is I'd like to come in and I'd like to analyze our entire budget, right? The problem with coming in June as a mayor, the budgeting process is well on its way, and so a brand new mayor doesn't really have enough time to have the say-so that he or she would need to be able to get a true budget approved. And so what I'd like to see is I'd like to see our city manager and our current city council to first and foremost take a look at how we're going to reduce the debt. I haven't seen a plan. I haven't heard anyone on council right now talk about a plan to reduce the debt. And I think that's where we need to start.
Okay. You mentioned less debt, but you also talked about fixing infrastructure. Mm-hmm. Largely, that is how the city has tackled its infrastructure need. It puts that in the capital budget of borrowing money to get the large amounts to build new roads, to completely redo. There is money for street maintenance and sidewalks in the general fund, where we're essentially spending the dollars out that year. But a lot of this is right now done through debt. So how would you propose fixing infrastructure while also trying to work down how much the city owes?
Right. So here's the thing, it's called prioritizing our projects, right? We need to have priority when we budget, right? We need to be able to say, okay, these are the things that are important to us. And for me, basic city services take priority, right? Pet projects and all of those things, I'm not saying they're not important, but we need to deprioritize those and really put our money where we're going to make ourselves more attractive, where we're going to improve the quality of life of people, right?
Well, could you give me some examples? Because I think improving the quality of life or that are important to people could apply to just about any city department. So under your definition or how you view the budget, what qualifies as those top priorities and what could be trimmed down?
We need to double down on public safety. That's where I think we need to spend the bulk of our money. We need to add more officers, both fire and police, right? We need to also be able to spend money on training for community policing, right? We need to make sure that people are feeling safe when they go out into their neighborhood. You know, it's not fair that senior citizens are afraid to go out into their community. Their families can't go out and enjoy our parks. So for me, that would be a top priority. And then you look at infrastructure. You know, I served on the Public Utility Commission. I understand CPS Energy, and I want to work with Rudy Garza to make sure that he and his team have what they need to be able to improve on our generation. You know, right now what's happening is that we don't have enough electric generation to satisfy the future needs. And so, you know, I think that CPS Energy is a top priority. That's the goose that lays the golden egg. $1 million a day come into the general fund. We have to protect CPS Energy. So that would be a priority. You know, public safety would be a priority. Making sure that we're not wasting billions of gallons of water because of aging infrastructure is a priority. Making sure that also that, you know, people aren't, you know, being booted from their homes because they can't afford to pay property taxes, right? And so we need to look, you know, we need to take a holistic approach to this. But we also have issues that we're handling that we should be handling that the city has no business in doing. And, you know, there are many examples of that. And I'm not going to get into the examples, but I will tell you that if we don't focus on making our city safe, if we don't focus on making our city attractive to investment, on investing on job programs that'll upscale people, then we're not going to get to where I need to be. And so that's going to be my top priorities, to make sure that we make ourselves attractive to bring in the investment that's needed to increase our standard of living and improve our quality of life.
Speaking of pet projects, you know, right now, two of the big things that a lot of San Antonians are looking at are plans for a downtown minor league baseball stadium for the San Antonio Missions. That's going to be up for a vote here soon with the city council. And there have also been a lot of rumors about what the city might be planning for a downtown Spurs arena. Mm-hmm. Where do you stand on both those initiatives, which a lot of potential voters are watching with a very close eye?
Yeah, well, look, as a taxpayer and as a citizen here, you know, we can't have it both ways. We want to be a big city, but we don't want to invest in big city amenities, right? You look at every other big city in Texas, they've spent a lot of money to make money, right? And so let's take for instance, you talked about the arena. I don't think it's fair to call it the Spurs Arena, by the way. This is an arena that's going to serve the entire community, right? Same thing with the ballpark. These are amenities that we need to be able to attract the investment that we're asking for, to create a world-class entertainment district downtown, which we sorely need. If we're going to compete with Dallas and Houston and Austin, we've got to be able to have those amenities in place. I see the arena and the ballpark just in the same way as I see the airport expansion, right? The airport expansion is the exact same thing. Is we're adding amenities, we're investing in ourselves, right? But to put the burden on the Spurs or the baseball team and say, this is your arena, I don't think that's fair. I think we need to work with them. Now, do I believe that it should be a public-private partnership? Absolutely, right? Now, the Spurs have doubled down in San Antonio. They built the Rock. So they've proven to us that they're committed to San Antonio. And guess what? They've delivered, 5 championships? And probably a few more coming up here. And so, I think that we need to stop looking at issues that, prevent us from moving forward and instead find solutions. And I think that's going to require leadership, right? I think Trish DeBerry is doing a great job in downtown. She wants the best for downtown. What I believe, though, is if we're going to invest in these facilities in downtown, I think the entire city needs to benefit. And so how do we invest in those facilities and at the same time having all 10 districts in the city benefit from it? And so I think that's going to be the challenge, but it requires leadership. It requires understanding economic development. I see those two projects through economic development eyes, and I don't differ them from an airport expansion. There are amenities that we need to be able to grow our city.
Okay. Another controversial issue for many San Antonians, though, it's generally gotten a lot of support from city leadership, so long as it's been funded by federal funds anyways, is the Migrant Resource Center. With the influx of tens of thousands of people passing through San Antonio on their way up from the border, after gaining the permission to legally travel within the U.S., there's been complaints from people in the community who don't think the city needs to be in this business. We've had at least one councilman who thinks the city needs to maybe get out of it, but largely the city council has kept this going. What do you think of the city's Migrant Resource Center? Is this something that the city needs to be doing? Does it need to be altered? Does it need to be done away with?
Well, first of all, I'm very proud to say that I am the only immigrant who's running for mayor. I'm the only immigrant candidate, and so I can empathize with the immigrants who are coming here for a better life, right? They're human beings. But that being said, the job of a mayor is to protect the citizens of San Antonio, to put them first. And so if we look at this Migrant Resource Center, my analysis of it is very simple, does it hurt or help the citizens of San Antonio? And everything I've heard, and I could be wrong, but everything I've heard is that the communities that are impacted the most in a negative way are the low-income communities, right? Because now they're having to compete for resources, right? Longer wait times at emergency rooms, food from the food bank, all those resources that are available to them, they're having to compete for them. The property owners in the neighborhood, right? With all the commotion going on, with protests, with law enforcement presence there, those individuals in those communities are being impacted negatively. Their property values are going down. The small businesses in that community, whether real or perceived, there's a public safety concern from citizens going into that community, and so now those small businesses aren't going to be able to attract. Our first responders and healthcare workers, now they're stretched. Their services are strained, right? And then finally, if you take a look at our working class families, working class neighborhoods are also impacted negatively because now you have crowded schools and all those things that come with it, right? So, I haven't seen a final accounting as to whether the city has been reimbursed completely, but there's no question that San Antonio taxpayers have had to go out of pocket for this, right? And so I don't know if we've been reimbursed by the federal government, but unfunded mandates from the federal government are no good for us, right? And to me, this isn't about immigrants. This isn't an immigration issue. This is a fiscal responsibility issue. What are we doing with our money, and can we put that money to work in a better way that serves the citizens and the taxpayers of San Antonio? But I'm an immigrant, and so I can empathize with the immigrant community. And so this is not an immigrant or pro-immigrant or anti-immigrant situation. This is really about how do we take care of the citizens of San Antonio first.
Okay. I want to talk about your entrance into the race.
Mm-hmm.
You just entered recently, okay, officially, but you had started the Future First San Antonio, I guess it's been described as a think tank. You got
It's a think tank.
501c4. To the cynical eye, that looks like a way to kind of profile and raise dark money. Mm-hmm. Can you talk about why did you decide to take this route, which was a bit novel for a San Antonio local race?
Well, I'm known for being novel in my approach, okay? And this is a very novel approach. you know, the cynical eyes will always be there. You know, they'll always, you know, when you try to better the community, there'll always be somebody out there criticizing you. But let me tell you what, we are the only large city in the U.S. without a nonpartisan, non-ideological think tank. And for those of your viewers who don't understand what that is we need a research organization that researches policy, like 2036 in Austin, right? That helps the policymakers arrive at decisions that they normally wouldn't be able to arrive at because they don't have the data. So the data that is being produced from a think tank will help policymakers. Right now, a city council person does not have a third party to go to ask for data and for information that is specifically related to the city. And so I created Future First San Antonio for that purpose. I can't imagine myself being mayor without having an independent, nonpartisan, non-ideological research organization that is pumping out research that helps us make a decision. Right now, locally, our policymakers don't have that. And so I think that we need to have one. Now, I've started that independent, you know, of running for mayor. Nobody thought that people would start running for mayor so early. I thought I would have ample time at the beginning of the year to roll out the public policy think tank and then run for mayor. And so those have overlapped, but they have one has nothing to do with the other, right? Although I will tell you is that as mayor, I will lean on not only that think tank, but other think tanks, statewide and federal think tanks, because when I served in state government, I leaned on think tanks because they have the research. And so you take their information and now you can make a better decision. I'm not saying that you go with whatever they tell you, but at least you can make an informed decision. And sometimes locally, our policymakers are not making informed decisions, and that's what this is.
When you say it's independent, does that mean you will not be taking money from this nonprofit?
Absolutely. It has nothing. I will not take any money from it. I don't need to. You know, as a matter of fact, I'm tens of thousands of dollars into it myself. I've paid for the startup. I've brought in the top policy researcher in the state. Dr. Varun Rai is at LBJ School of Public Affairs. Okay, he has agreed to help develop the research methodology, and we promise to make all that methodology transparent. This is going to be very transparent. Okay, we brought in an interim executive director. Right, I'm looking for other researchers. I'm talking to the gentleman that started Borderplex, which is what I did in El Paso. He's an expert in regional economic development. He's a professor out at Oregon State. And so I'm trying to build a quality think tank that is non-ideological, nonpartisan, right? All we need to do is we need to bring in experts, the best of the best, to tell us what we need to do so that we can then take that information and make our own decisions. Right now, we don't have that.
I want to end the interview with asking you, what do you think the biggest problem facing San Antonio is right now, and how would you plan to tackle that as mayor?
The biggest problem is that you know, we need solid, qualified leadership bringing this community together. We're torn apart by ideology, by partisanship. We need to come together. We need to unify, and we need a leader with proven leadership experience, with proven life experience, both in government and in the private sector. And I'm that person. I can bring our community together. I have the ability to reach across the aisle, right? Anyone who knows me personally knows that I've always done that. You know, I've volunteered in many organizations here in town. I have a tremendous respect for our private sector here, for our public sector. You know, the 13,000 men and women at the city, you know, they're the best of the best. We need to be able to give them the tools that they need to be able to do their job well. And so I think that the biggest problem is that we're not unified. We don't have a unified vision. Everybody's kind of working in silos. And so we need a leader who can bring everybody together under one master vision that everybody agrees on, and do it with the skill and the experience that is needed. Right now, we need an experienced leader who can take us in that direction, and I believe that I'm that person.
Well, thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us.
Thank you. You got it, of course.